You know, I have to say I'm proud to say today that I'm a full-time public elementary school teacher. And I want to and I want you to remember everything that came before today. It's been incredible. It's going to lend a lot of transparency to what I'm going to share today. The first thing I wanted to mention was kind of ties in very nicely with everything we've heard today. I'm trying to get and show examples that take us away from this teaching kids how to be taught into teaching kids how to be learners. So in my classroom, I'm real fortunate that we have some tools that lend themselves to that. I do have a one-to-one laptop class. We have other hardware that you'll see through my presentation today. And maybe one of the more important things is all the applications we have access to. But the very most important thing is that I have access to a network of learners that help me, and my students have access to a network of learners that help them. And some of those people are adults, and some of those people are children. You know, we have technology, and that's very enabling. But it's really the pedagogy that goes along with that that's really the powerful piece here, because it makes those connections with kids. Kids connect with other students around the world. Students connect with adults. And because of that, they're allowed these collaboration events where they can actually collaborate not just with students in their room, but students across socioeconomic boundaries and from around the world. They communicate and they become active learners, not sitting in a seat, learning to slant and learning to track the teacher. But instead, they're active learning. They're exposed to a rich curriculum across the board. They see the connections and things and tie them together. And we use a lot of these tools to do that because they're automatically collaborative. If kids are blogging and they're interacting with other students, there's a conversation that happens, and that often turns into collaboration. Teachers do the same. We work with these tools, but we also use them to plan. And instead of planning with the teacher in the classroom next to you, very often that means you're planning with a teacher in New Zealand or Shanghai, China, or almost anywhere you can imagine. So let's look at some of these kinds of projects that we work on. This is one of my favorites. How many people are familiar with Chris Van Allsburg? So he wrote Jumanji and The Polar Express, both made into movies. This is my favorite book of his. It's probably the greatest writing book you'll ever buy. It's a picture book, and here's how it works. Inside is a picture like the one you see on the cover, and on the facing page, all there is a title and a caption for the picture. So in the case of this one, you can see that the title for this is Another Place, Another Time. And the caption says, if there was an answer, he'd find it there. And then you have to kind of drink in the picture, and the railroad tracks disappear into the mist, and you can see a land of Oz or maybe a castle back there on the horizon, and these kids are on this railroad car with a sail. And you almost right away start thinking of what's the story that goes along with this. And in this book, every page is like this, and none of the pages are connected to each other. They're all standalone ideas for a story. So a friend of mine, Lisa Parisi, right here in New York, teaches on Long Island. I visited her classroom yesterday, and that might come up again later in my presentation. We decided to do a collaborative story. So what we did was we taught our students this book and had them brainstorm ideas for every story. And then we assigned 2 students in my class and 2 students in her class to write a story collaboratively. Not all those 4 students wrote a story with the same title. They had to write it collaboratively. So we got started in a Google Doc. And Lisa put a template, what you see up there in blue. It actually goes way down the page, so you don't see it all. But it had things in it like genre and characters, and plot and all those pieces. And the great thing about Google Docs, for anyone that's not aware of it, is you can be on it live and actually see each other working. Or you can get in at a time when the other person isn't there and add stuff, and when they open up the document the next time, they can see what you added, which is perfect because we're 3-hour time zones across. apart from each other. And so when we first started, we weren't able to actually link up very well for the first few days, and students in her class were putting ideas in, and my students would open it up and they'd see it. But then we were able to start timing things. 11 o'clock in the morning for us was 2 o'clock in the afternoon for them, and we'd agree to come on, and the kids would see each other, and if you've used Google Docs, it gives the name of the person on the other side that's also viewing. And so we were walking around, I was walking around in class one day, and later I found out from Lisa she had the same experience. You know, we expected them to write everything in black, and we've seen all this color. Well, you know, the dang kids are just making it look pretty, and so conversations went like this. Hey guys, let's not spend time changing colors on things, and you know, come on, let's, well, no, Ms. Crosby, see, what happened was everything was in black, but then, you know, we were asking them questions, and we were putting our ideas for the plot or whatever in it, but it was hard to tell what was what. So they're writing everything in red, and we're writing everything in purple, and then our comments to each other are in green. Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead and carry on. So this text piece was working really well, but if you've ever read between the lines in an email and you're taking somebody's comment as negative, you started to see a few of those things kick in, and then we kind of had that moment of, let's add Skype into this. So kids would work on laptops, and we'd set up a computer, one each in the back of our rooms, and kids could have conversations about their piece that didn't lend themselves well to writing questions in a document. They could actually have a conversation, and that face piece, that making a connection to what this person looks like, changed the whole attitude about their work. It was incredible stuff. So this is kind of what came out. This is one example of the story. That's a published piece from there. At the top of the page, you can see what happened is as Lisa and I talked about in our own blogs what we were doing. All of a sudden, we were contacted by teachers from all over the United States and as far away as Australia, and they wanted to participate in this too. So we set it up, and we joined them up, and they started doing the same project, so that by the end, we had 7 groups, 7 classrooms, 14 teachers all together doing this with their students. It just kind of came up by, you know, of its own accord based on this learning network that we'd set up. Other teachers were aware of what we were doing. They wanted to be part of it too. So Lisa and my class worked together a fair amount through our blogs, not always in a planned way, but just because kids blog all around, and they've got certain classrooms that they tend to talk to, and they make friends that way. But 3 years had gone by, and we went, wow, you know, we haven't really worked on a big class project in a while. So this year we took on this Energizing Energy project. And when we did so, Lisa and I spent a couple of weeks planning, and we used resources like these to plan. But my at-risk kids, and even her students that are not at risk, being 5th graders, are not always exposed to these things in truly educational kind of value put to them. It's a lot of the gaming and that kind of thing. So, you know, here we were, 2 teachers with master's degrees with over 50 years experience between us, and quite a bit of experience with this. So when we got our kids involved, of course, the list changed quite a bit. You know, more than doubled because of all the different pieces that they're starting to use on this. So this one, ironically enough, also started out in a Google Doc, and they did the same kind of color change on their own. And so what they had to do was, we had 7 groups. One was wind energy, one was solar energy, and the list went on. And we grouped 3 or 4 students in Lisa's class and 3 or 4 students in my class were in the same group. So we had a quick Skype thing for both classes to meet each other, and then they started working in the Google Doc and just started having a conversation and doing research and dumping links in there and asking questions, and they were supposed to find a kinetic, an experiment to show the kinetic form of their energy source, and also an experiment that would demonstrate transforming their energy into a different form of energy. And then they had to decide which members of their group in which class were going to do which experiment. So they had that conversation here. And then we Skyped each group so they could have that discussion and ferret out who was going to do which experiment and share some of the ideas and even advocate for a certain experiment they'd found. Each meeting was videotaped and archived on YouTube. We even brought in people on Skype to do lessons. This is the PE teacher at Lisa's school that did a thing on the lever systems of using a golf club, which was quite intriguing. And then the groups had time at their own site to design their experiment and to tweak things. And then we started setting up these Skype things where the WIN group would, if there were a kinetic group and my group would show their experiment, and then boom, into Lisa's class, and they'd turn right around and show that. And the next day, the same thing would happen. So for 7 days, we would Skype for anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes, and the kids would do their experiments for each other. And instead of having the rest of the kids that weren't in the group that was presenting, sitting there, slack-jawed, or maybe a little drool spilling out, we set up a Cover It Live feed, and the students had to actively pay attention and answer questions we dumped in there and hypothesize about what was going to happen. The groups would always say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's what we've got, and so here's what is going to happen in this experiment as much as we know. And then everybody in the classes would feed into the Cover It Live and say what they thought was going to happen. And then we had 2 groups, whichever the next groups had the forms that the group had to design themselves to collect the data in, and so they'd collect the data in their form on a live Google Doc. So this project is still ongoing, and we're going to actually get back to it next week once I return. This quote, "We couldn't do this with the elementary school we share a wall with," comes from a teacher in Baltimore, Maryland, George Mayo, who contacted me about 4 years ago and said, hey, my 7th graders have made these moral of the story videos. They're 2, 3, 4 minutes long, and they really designed them to be used with 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. And would you be willing to have your kids watch them? And then what we want to know is, do they know what the moral of the story, what the moral they were supposed to learn was, and do they have any tips for them to make their videos easier to understand or whatever? So I said, sure, yeah, let's take that on. So my kids watched the video clips, and then we Skyped in. Here's George. I'm sorry for the pixelated video, and there's us back in Reno, Nevada. And so imagine the power here of 4th graders telling 7th graders what was good and not so good about their videos, and did they learn the content that the 7th grader was trying to get across. And so the point that George made at the end of our Skype session was, we share a wall with the elementary school right next door, but because of our lunch schedule, we were going to go share this with them. We couldn't do it. This was so much easier. We didn't have to take computers over to their room or whatever. We could just do it right from here. It was like, yeah, Another thing a lot of us are finding is this incredible way to share incredible experiences you're having. So 4 years ago, I got a call, and Grace Corrigan, who's the mother of Krista McAuliffe, the astronaut that was killed on the Space Shuttle Challenger, was coming to Reno. And whenever she comes to a city, I learned, she likes to visit one classroom. So I said, oh, great, yeah, that'd be fantastic, but let's set up in the multi-purpose room and she can talk to the whole school. Well, no, she really wants kind of a more intimate kind of relationship. This is what she does with one classroom. So I said, what if we audio Skype it out and let anybody that wants to listen in, and they could even ask questions during the question and answer period? And she was amenable to that, so we did that. So imagine an incredible experience like this.
An apple because the teacher was on the flight. So there was an apple for the teacher because it was an educational flight. They were going to teach, Krista was going to teach lessons from space to children all around the world. And of course, she wasn't able to do that. But a lot of good things have happened out of the tragedy.
And so all this is archived. We podcasted it, we vidcasted it, and that made it available for us to go back to when kids would talk about things and you'd hear inconsistencies in their beliefs and what they'd been taught. You could go back and find that part. They wrote about it. You know, one of my pet peeves is going on a field trip or having some activity like this and just leaving it as a standalone activity. process the information, process the learning, take pictures, blog about it, tell everybody else what you saw, and share your learning. Let them come back at you and keep that going. Now it's available not only to you in class, it's available to parents. It's an archive. It's a data piece of where they're at and where they're going. And they're highly motivated to participate in that kind of a discussion. Sitting right here in the crowd today is Sylvia Tolisano. We've already seen her mentioned today. And she and I got together when she first started this project called Around the World with 80 Schools. In fact, I think my class was her school's first Skype session. And just a real simple format. We purposely designed her, I should say she did, to be as short as 5 minutes so that teachers that felt like, you know, I can't really integrate like that and my principal's going to wonder what's going on, could do it that way. What I found is teachers that would tell me that and we'd end up Skyping with them, you know, a half hour, 45 minutes later, we'd finally be hanging up. So what's great is you can bring in geography of the world, and we know how strong our kids' geography skills are at this point. Even things like seasons. Skype with somebody in the southern hemisphere and it's winter for them and it's, you know, spring for us, or, you know, and kids start going, what? And realize that things aren't maybe what they think. And there's that questioning piece and something they want to look into. Here's how I usually start out. We go on Google Earth. That's the roof of my classroom. And we go down, and this was a class in Argentina, go right down on the school building, and then a minute later, you're Skyping with them. So here's this classroom in Argentina. They're trilingual. They speak German, Spanish, and English. We shared with them, taught them about the state of Nevada. We sang to them. They sang back to us. I think the whole thing lasted 15 minutes. We turned around that afternoon, Skyped down to New Zealand, to Lonnie King's class. Everybody wave. And they sang to us. They got up and did the Maori dance for us, the native populations dance there. You know, they're incredible experiences. And then you have kids write about that and share about that and process that information in so many ways. Public service projects is one of my passions. And so here's a piece where it's not only public service, it's about animals. And you put kids and animals together and you can't go wrong. They researched, this animal ark is a place right outside Reno where they've got bears and coyotes and wolves and just about everything. You can see the list there, most of which come in because they've been injured or whatever and can't be placed back in the wild. So we designed a website to go along with field trips there, whether it was just a family going or a classroom. So every group, and this was fourth graders that made this, every group had 3 animals to research. And so it's not just going out and finding cool websites. It's, no, you've got to find the best website about the barn owl you can find that teaches the standards we're teaching. They've got to find out about the adaptations and their diet and all those pieces and find the best ones they can. And they even rank them on the site so that the top one is supposedly the best one. But then we threw the application process in. Now that you've found out about the adaptations and whatever this animal, apply it. So they fold up a big piece of paper and they have to design just the eyes for their animal, just the mouth, just the ears. What's your animal going to eat? Well, then you need to design the mouth and the teeth to go along that. And only after you've done that, you put those pieces together to make your animal. So you don't make the animal first and then figure out what things do. You design it from piece by piece and come up even down to the color. You can see we live in a high desert because, you know, it's all the sagebrush and rabbit brush. So it's that creativity piece. It's bringing art in and all those things that we'd really. Another public service, we designed a website for the Reno Bike Project, a nonprofit. And so we went out, we visited there, we took pictures, we shot video, and then we came back and made them this wiki page. Every group had a different piece to do. But the kids said, well, that's not enough exposure for them. People aren't going to know to come here, so they did this.
Northern Nevada, gorgeous scenery, clean air, limitless outdoor fun.
But that is threatened by rising gas prices, air pollution, and lifestyles lacking exercise.
The Reno Bike Project can help.
They'll recycle your unwanted bicycle in their full-service shop for others to purchase.
or for a small fee, use their tools to fix it for your own use. Won't you help?
Donate your unwanted bicycle to the Reno Bike Project.
Recycle that bicycle and keep Northern Nevada clean, lean, and green.
Being different is a solution, not a problem.
We don't just send things to the refrigerator door, we send them to the world. And it's meaningful work. And as a friend of mine said the other day, the way to reach disengaged kids is not to engage them, it's to empower them with meaningful work. And that's from Chris Lehman at Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia. My time's up, so thank you.